Thank you. Welcome everyone to this Rutland Sacre meeting. Welcome everybody. This is a public meeting, so welcome to any members of the public who might be listening in as well. We start on the agenda with a moment of reflection, which you should have on your agenda sheets, which I will read out, and we pause just for a moment to think before we start our meeting. We gather together here today intent on doing good work. We seek to represent fairly and well those who have given us this task. May our efforts be blessed with insight, guided by understanding and wisdom. We seek to serve with respect for all. May our personal beliefs give us strength to act honestly and well in all matters before us. Thank you. I'd like to formally welcome everybody. We have quite a lot of new people on this committee now, which is great. Can I take any apologies, Jane, please?
Yes, Chair, we have received apologies from the Reverend Dr. Peter Holmes, Elizabeth Papworth, but Jill Curtis is attending, Rhoda Gibson and Bjorn Finker.
Thank you. I think as we've got so many new members, it'd be worth just going around the screen or the virtual room to just introduce ourselves. I'm Councillor Rosemary Powell, Councillor on Rutland County Council, and I'm chair of this Sacre. We have got on the agenda item 4, appointment of a new chair, but I will chair this meeting up to that point. So again, welcome. I'll go according to my screen, which might not be the order in your screen. If you could just introduce yourselves and say which what representative you are, who you're representing. Cara.
Hi, I'm Cara Topping and I'm representing English Martyrs Catholic Primary School in Oakham.
Thank you. Jill?
I'm Jill Curtis. I'm the Head of Learning and Skills, representing the local authority here today for Lizzie Papworth.
Thank you. Gurdev?
Hello, I'm Gurdev Singh. I represent the Sikh faith.
Marianne?
I'm Marianne Marples. I am here representing Oakham Church of England Primary School.
Thank you. Andrew?
Andrew Howell, representing Humanists UK.
Thank you. Daniel?
I'm Daniel Alfieri. I'm the head teacher of St Nicholas Church of England Primary School, and that's who I am representing.
Thanks. Amanda?
I'm Amanda Fitton. I am the Avari advisor for Rutland and some other places. And when I'm talking, I just want to say a brief apology if you hear any noise outside. My bill is
Amanda, you actually did keep freezing then, so we couldn't actually hear what you said. Would you like to try again?
Yeah, can you hear me now? So I've got a real problem with internet today. I think it's because everybody's working from home. So I'm Amanda Fitton, I'm the RE advisor, and apologies if I keep breaking up.
Thank you. Fiona?
Fiona Wills, head teacher at St Mary and St John in North Lough, and I'm representing Peterborough Diocese.
Thank you. Megan?
I'm Megan Davis. I'm head teacher at Exton Greetham Primary School and I represent the NAHT.
Thank you. And Sheila?
Hello everybody, great to be here. I'm Jewish representative, newly moved into just outside Manton, near the nature reserve on Linden Road, and it's great to be here as your Jewish rep.
Thank you. It's really good to have a wide range of representatives on this Sacre committee. There is another councillor, David Blanksby, who's been elected to this committee as well, although I haven't actually had apologies from him. And Councillor Lucy Stevenson, who was previously representative of Rutland County Council, has now stepped down from this committee. So moving on with the agenda, I should say normal sort of rules. If you would like to say anything at any time, just raise your virtual hand or sort of wave at me, and hopefully I'll respond to either of those signals. And if people can keep themselves muted if you're not speaking, just to minimize any interference. Thank you. So item number 2 is to confirm the minutes of the meeting held on the 8th of March. Now, mindful that quite a few of you here weren't present at that meeting. Of the people who were present, are you happy to confirm that they're a true reflection of our meeting? Any comments? That's okay then. Yeah, any comments or inaccuracies or anything to change? No. Okay. I'd like to propose that these are confirmed. Can just everyone just raise your real hand to confirm? Is of people okay? Is that
Thank
okay?
you. Thank you, Chair. That's all confirmed.
Okay. Item number 3 is the actions from the previous meeting, which I think is really useful to have set out in this sort of table form. I'm not proposing to go through them all, but really just will carry forward the ones that haven't been completed yet. So I'd just like to go through those ones so to see what the progress is. So number 3 was down to Amanda about getting a small group together to work on the definition of worldviews. Amanda, is there an update on that?
We have done that through the agreed syllabus, and we're slowly getting there because Gerdiv's been part of that, and so is actually Peter, and we're getting that. And I will cover a little bit more of that in the bit about the agreed syllabus, if that's okay.
Okay, so will we be able to, if we're trying to complete things, so that's ongoing, but what I don't want to have is too many actions carried forward.
On agreed syllabus conference.
Can't hear you, Amanda.
Sorry, it can be put into anything to do with the agreed syllabus and put into the ongoing discussions on the agreed syllabus.
Okay, we can do that. Thanks, Jane. Item 5 is about inviting schools to a future Sacre meeting. We obviously have representatives from schools here. Is Amanda or Jill, is there any? I think we just keep that as an action.
Yeah, and I think we did send out a post. I sent out a poster which Lizzie sent out, and actually we got quite a good reply, as you can see from here, which was really nice. So yes, I think it's something we can keep going and keep looking at. Okay,
and similarly with views of pupils, that might be something for a future meeting. Okay, and representative of the item 9, representative of the Muslim faith, was there any progress on that?
Yes, we have got Sacre is happy to join if she can't find anybody else, but I need to chase her up on that. I know she's been very busy with the Sacre, so I need to actually chase her up, but she was happy to come and be part of that as of September.
Okay, so we'll keep that as an item until that's confirmed. We'll complete that as an action. And similarly, I think item 10 is about Ministry of Defence being invited in terms of their particular children's needs. So I think that goes along with future meetings.
Yes, it will. I spoke to Jackie Crocker because they are actually in the process, because they've run on kind of like European school times. They're not always available at this time. They're beginning to actually close, and schools are actually winding up schools. So I think the next meeting in September, October, we'll get her to actually discuss that there. Okay.
I wonder, actually, Jane, I wonder if you can draw these together, because these are all about future meetings, so they're not so much actions as such, they're more about who we can invite to future meetings. I wonder if they could be perhaps drawn together in one action. And item 11, which was my question about member training, and I don't know that I've had an answer to that. A budget.
I did actually speak with Stacey Potter regarding this action that was hers. And she has confirmed that, yes, there is a budget for 2 people to attend the annual conference. Apologies if she didn't get back to you,
That's all right.
Councillor
It might-
Powell. She
that
should have
might be-
done.
Sorry, it might be my omission. Jill, did you want
Yeah,
to?
I was just going to say the same. Sorry, so Jane and I both got the same piece of information, but yes, we normally fund 2 places from our budget within the Learning and Skills Service.
So 2 places at the annual conference. Yeah. Okay, all right, so that action is completed and we have that information. Okay, thank you. Item number 4.
Sorry, Chair, Andrew would like to ask a question.
Sorry, Andrew.
Yeah, sorry, slightly confused. What I've got as item 3.5 is Peter talking about the definition of well-views. Have I got a miss?
Sorry, I've got 2 columns. One was the number of the action, and the second one was the reference to a thing.
I've got
was
no.
previous.
I haven't. Mine's in a slightly different order. I recognise most of what you're saying, but it's just that he asked about whether it'd be beneficial to have a small group to work on the definition of well-views.
Yeah.
All I simply want is to note that I have an interest in this. So Peter's unfortunately not here today, but
okay.
So that's it.
Can Andrew's interest be?
Yeah.
Can you include Andrew then, Amanda?
Talking to Peter or whoever, right? Okay.
Yeah, Andrew, if you want to attend one of the agreed syllabus meetings, you're more than welcome.
Yeah.
The next one is next week, next Wednesday.
Right.
Or if you're up for it, we are actually meeting face to face on the 13th of July at Papworth.
Where?
Can I leave you to sort that out between yourselves after the meeting in terms of arrangements?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll send all the links and everything. Andrew, I'll write down and I'll send you all the links.
Yeah, I don't travel much at the moment, so for various reasons. Okay.
Oh, you can join by Zoom if you want to on the 13th.
Fine, that's better for me.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Item number 4 is membership. So the first item on this is appointment of a new chair. I've been chair since I think October 2020. For the last, I don't know how many years, few years, it has been county councillors who've taken the chair, but it doesn't have to be, because obviously this is a committee made up of representatives of all the different categories. So I will be, I'm not wanting to continue as chair, and so we need to appoint a new chair. So I think I have asked, I did circulate an email to ask if anyone was willing to step forward, and I would like to propose a person, but obviously anyone of this committee is welcome to nominate somebody to be chair. I'd like to propose Gurdev Singh. He said he is happy to stand, unless you've had a last minute change of heart, Gurdev.
I'm still happy to stand. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations? No. Jane, do we formally have to propose and second? Yeah. Could I have a seconder then for Gurdev? Andrew, thank you. All those in favour of appointing Gurdev as the new chair?
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
That's brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Gurdev. And I think I now hand over to you for the rest of the meeting. And thank you to everyone for your support to me as chair over the last 18 months.
And I would just say, in return, thank you, Rosemary, for being chair for the past 18 months. Hard act to follow. So I'll do my very best, and it's not a role that I've done before, but I've been on many Sacres in the past, so hopefully you'll help me along the way as well. So shall we move on to item 4B, which effectively is the appointment of a vice chair. And similarly, the floor is open to everybody who wishes to become vice chair to say so. I think we do have one potential candidate. Am I right in saying that that is still the case? Perhaps Rosemary, you might enlighten us.
Yes, I was wanting to propose Andrew Hull, if he's still amenable to taking on that role.
I will do it, as I said in my return to you, unless there's someone more able than me and willing.
With that, are there any other candidates? Is anybody else interested in standing as vice chair? If not, could we, by way of show of hands, confirm acceptance of Andrew as vice chair? Again, that's unanimous.
Thank you, Chair. That's unanimous.
Thank you. Shall we move on then to item 4C, appointment of new members? So we do have in the room, or the virtual room, a mixture of new faces, some of whom may want to be full members. I'm not sure if that's the case with everybody. How might we proceed in this particular item? That's a general question. Is it
Jane,
a question?
Jane, do you want, sorry, Jane, I just need to make sure we're clear constitutionally what we have to do to, I think as I understand it, we just have to note the new members. Is that correct?
That's correct, Chair. You just have to note the new members and approve that everybody agrees for them to be a new member.
Might be just as easy for those who, I was going to start with yourself, Sheila, because you're top of my screen here. Unless you want to.
Okay, so I'm on Sacre and I know Sakina, she's amazing. And we have this huge discussion about appointing people to Sacres, and it's the local authority who do that, but the recommendation can come from the Sacre. So I had a whole discussion with somebody about, discussions on whether or not we should appoint, and they said, you know what, it's not your job. You can recommend, but it is actually the local authority who do it. Okay, so that, I don't know whether that's in the constitution or what, but Paul Smalley, who was the chair of Sacre, he said, I've told you this many times, I'm sorry. But apparently that's how it works. Yeah, so anyway.
Rosemary?
I was just saying to Jane, I'm not disagreeing with that, but can we just check that with what we have on our constitution and governance? Obviously, Rutland County Council supports the Sacre in terms of providing clerk and minuting and everything, but if we can just, are you able to check that? But can we agree on this Sacre what? And then formalised exactly the wording, maybe.
Amanda, do you want to comment at this point?
Yeah, all I want to say is actually under the legislation, under the Education Act, it is at Sacre, it's the local authority who is in charge and actually does appoint, and it actually does say in the legislation.
Well, yeah, presumably, sorry. Amanda's freezing. Amanda, you were freezing there. Presumably, we can recommend, full stop. Now, let's
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you can recommend. Yes, you can recommend, and then it's for the LA to say yes, they are happy with that person, because it's the ultimate responsibility of the LA.
So, okay, Amanda, you're breaking up again. So just for clarity, the group here can recommend. It's for the LA to confirm. Can I just clarify who within the LA is the person or persons that will make the decision? And in the meantime,
try again. Unfortunately, the legislation just says the LA, so it's up to, in different LAs, it's different people, so it's different for all of them. So I would say probably, because Jill's here, it should be Jill. Sorry.
Jill, do you want to come in there?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't drifting out of the meeting. I'd actually got a copy of the Constitution up. And yes, it is very, I think the Constitution, it's written in it's worded slightly differently, but I think it actually is saying that Sacre has the power to co-opt members as agreed by the majority of its members. And then it's got, and I just wonder actually whether, because the version I've got is 2019, is it reviewed annually, the Constitution, or?
It should be.
Can I suggest, on the basis that we as a group can't approve, we can recommend, let's do the recommendation today and let's take an action. Perhaps Jill can follow up with Amanda after the meeting to confirm whether or not the Sacre's recommendations are accepted.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you, Gerda.
Yep. So can I ask, for the severe couple of faces that are new to me today, Sheila, I hadn't seen yourself before. So are we recommending Sheila? I presume Sheila, you're happy to be recommended.
Absolutely. I'm actually immediate past Senior Vice President of the Board of Deputies of British Jews, and I'm on one or two Sacres, and it's become my mission to get as many Jewish people on Sacres as possible. I'm delighted to have had a conversation with Rosemary at one point, wasn't sure whether Rutland has a Jewish rep, and delighted to be invited to this meeting. I would be very grateful if you would consider me suitable.
So I would recommend Sheila. Is there any objections, or is everybody agreement? Hands if you agree. Yep, so that looks unanimous. Thank you. For all other members, I'm just for the avoidance of doubt, you're all familiar faces from past meetings, so I don't know if there's anybody else new, unless Daniel, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Yes, so I'm new. I was asked to join by Peterborough Diocese. However, I am unsure exactly who I'm representing, whether it's the teachers broadly of Rutland, my school, Peterborough Diocese. So I'm happy to join if you'll have me, but I need to confirm exactly who I am representing.
Amanda, do you want to come in on the options there?
Daniel, you'll be representing the teachers. Because the diocese is, I think we've got everybody on the diocese now, and as like Marianne as well, you'll be representing the teachers, and like Megan does.
Sorry, Amanda, we have Daniel down as representing the Peterborough Diocese.
Oh, has he come through from the diocese right to you?
They did indeed, yes.
Okay,
yeah.
Because I know we've got Peter. Can we? Okay, because actually we've got Peter and
we have
James.
We have Peter and James from the Rutland Deanery, and Daniel and Fiona representing the Peterborough Diocese.
And our Constitution says two from each of those.
Okay,
so
that's right. That's right. Okay, yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
just sort of doing a quick line across, but I do think, as an action, I do think there needs to be a review of the Constitution.
I agree.
I've just turned to the minutes of the last meeting, and it's clear to me that Daniel and Fiona are representing the diocese, and Peter and James are representing Rutland Deanery. That's in the list that you put out with the minutes. And that were the minutes of the last meeting.
Yeah, that's correct. Thank you.
So we presumably can't, are we now changing the minutes of the last meeting? Being a bit pedantic.
No, what you stated was actually correct. They are representing, Daniel is representing the Peterborough Diocese.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
So we don't need to do anything more on that one. He's here.
And that's a distribution list rather than part of the minutes of the last meeting, Andrew?
Yeah, but, well, it seems to, it's headed members of the Rutland Sacre. So I'm guessing he was a member of the Rutland Sacre before this meeting started. Am I being pedantic or what?
If we're all happy, irrespective of whether Daniel was in the past but is now, we recommend Daniel is.
Perfect.
Okay. Thank you very much, Daniel. And others, Fiona.
Yes, I think I'm the same as Daniel. I've been asked by Peterborough Diocese.
Yeah.
So again, by way of show of hands, is everybody accepting Fiona being recommended as a member? Yep, unanimous again. Thank you. And I'm just going around the screen. Anybody else, or does that cover us all? Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon.
Hi, I've been RE lead now at English Martyrs for over 10 years, and I've been asked time and time again to join, and I'm not sure on what sort of basis I'm coming in, but I'm very interested to come in and be part of it if I'm allowed to do that. I've finally got the time to do it, so I think it would help me in my role too. So I think it's good for the Rutland schools. Are you happy on that basis, or?
So Amanda, if you could just clarify, is that the basis as a teacher?
Yes, the teacher as well, and Marianne on here as well, because I know Marianne has struggled recently to actually access, but she's here tonight as well.
Yeah, the last 2 meetings I was invited to, and I've had tech difficulties, so I've rushed home to use my own internet today. Works better.
Sorry, Marianne, can I just clarify?
Yeah.
Who you're actually representing?
I am RE lead at Oakham Church of England Primary School, so I'm not sure whether I represent the school or teachers. RE
teachers, it's the teachers like Cara.
Yeah.
So is the name of a particular union or organisation?
Well, my understanding is that I'm here as an RE teacher in a primary school.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so again, do we all accept both Cara and Marianne? Yeah, again, unanimous.
Sorry,
Andrew?
I'm going to be pedantic again, but we had a distribution list put out which says members of the Rutland Sacre, and it's got all the things we've been discussing, and Daniel and Fiona as representing the diocese, Marianne as representing TBC, etc. So if we are going to modify any of that, who do we advise? Who's the author of this document? I'm being pedantic, but I'm getting slightly confused with people saying I represent this, but I've got a piece of paper here that says they're different things.
Again, I think if it's agreeable, similar to, as I said about Daniel, could we agree that as of today, what was discussed and agreed as recommendation is based representation going forwards? Is that agreeable? Based on what we've discussed today, this is the basis of the representation going forwards. I wasn't sure whether it was I that just froze there or Andrew.
No, I'm sorry. I'm still a bit unclear with. Sorry, Mary Ann is saying one thing, and the piece of paper I've got said something else.
What does my piece of paper say for me?
TBC.
That means to be confirmed. And I've just confirmed that I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Unless there's any other names, that concludes item 4. We move on to item 5, the agreed syllabus conference update. If I hand over to Amanda.
Thank you. And Gerdy, if I freeze, please jump in because you've been at most of the meetings. We are making slow progress. It is slow progress, some of it because there's so much coming out of the RE world, about worldviews and what a curriculum looks like, that we want to make sure it's right. And there's been lots of reading since Christmas about everything that's been coming out from the RE Council, from Callum St Gabriel's, from Natre, from all sorts of things, and the Sacre, about all this. And we're beginning to collate it together and beginning to get the idea of what worldviews looks like. And we're kind of agreeing that it's very much a personal view. It's a personal view on the outlook of the world, but it also encompasses our communities, the people around us, and the past, the present, and what it might look in the future. So we're beginning to put that together. We have looked at things like actually what to teach, the hours, and hopefully we're all meeting together, and some people are going to be virtually, some people are going to be there on the 13th of July in Papworth to do actually a whole day of kind of just sitting there in groups, doing a lot of work on this. And we have space for 2 primary and 2 secondary teachers who are going to be paid, their cover is going to be paid for, to join us at Papworth to do this work. So we're hoping a bulk of it will get done. It's okay by doing it virtually, but sometimes you do need to get together on bits of sugar paper and things like that to actually kind of like get things down, get things discussed, and see things in principle. So we've kind of got to that point now, but it is going there, it is getting there. The conference is hopefully going to be booked, so a whole day's CPD for next June, sorry, after the school exams. And I'm hoping that we're going to have Christine Council there, who is the RE guru for Ofsted, and someone called Trevor Cooling, who is also really quite big into the RE Council, and we're hoping they're going to be our 2 keynote speakers. Luckily, Christine Council lives in Cambridge, so she's quite easy to get hold of, and she's been working actually with Cambridge County Council on a project. Gerd, if anything else, and hopefully I didn't break up.
No, that was really helpful. Thank you. So if I can just draw from what you just said there, are there still places if anyone wishes to join the meeting in Papworth?
Yes, if you want to join, I need to find out from the clerk who's clerking Laura how many teachers we've got. But so Cara or Marianne, if you'd like to come over the trip to Papworth from Rutland, you're more than welcome. I expect we could actually get you in, because it'd be really nice to have a Rutland teacher there on the conference as well to represent your teachers.
Thank you. Sheila?
Yeah, do you have space for more faith representatives? I don't know what you've already got. I'm not aware of the stage at which you're at.
We have got a representative from all the only faith we haven't got a representative from is the Buddhist faith, because they're so small, they're very difficult. But if you'd like to come along and be part of the Rutland team, which is quite small, because that's who Gerd is representing, you're more than welcome to come over, and I'm happy to I'll send the link. I can send the link to you, and all the everything to you, what time and where to come to and everything. We've got a big meeting room, it's got lots of windows, it's nicely ventilated.
Can I suggest then, those who are interested, please contact Amanda so she can confirm space and location, times, etc. But it's open to the more input we get at this stage, the richer the output would be.
Yeah, and especially if you've been on Sacre as well, Sheila, that would be really useful if you've been through the agreed syllabus process. And at this moment as well, because I'm sure you know there's lots of changes and lots of things going on in the RE world towards this as well.
Sacre have run training. I've got training on Thursday night for some of this sort of stuff. I can't do the 13th of July, so even virtually, I've got family here from America. If there would be follow-up meetings, I'd really appreciate it if I could be included. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you.
Any other comments? In which case, can I also then add, might for the next meeting, Amanda, if you could present perhaps a summary of where we're up to, whether it's the model that's likely to take shape so that the Sacre here can note it and endorse it before more detail is added to it.
No problem. And you should actually, Tom should have been sent, Jane, I think, have you been included in that? That they should be sent links to the agreed syllabus, teams, links to all the files and everything in the minutes.
Yes, Amanda, both myself and Tom have been sent the links, and we're now in the Teams, and we have contacted Laura and sent her the email addresses of all members, so they should be receiving an email from Laura with the link to go into the Teams meeting to access files.
Yeah, and it means that you will be able to go in there. And if you have any problems, please come through to myself, at Jane or Laura. Actually, not so Laura's better, actually, she's a whiz on this now. And you'll be able to access all the minutes and the agendas and all the reading and everything that's gone. Actually, everybody has shared, and all the PowerPoints and everything that has gone on so far. And you'll be able to access that and then report back to your the people you actually represent as well. It's a closed file, so actually, you know, opening them, you can't change anything or anything. The only people who can change anything are myself and Laura, and update it, but you will have access, you should have access in the coming days to all those files. I'm sorry it's taken a while for you to have access to those.
So that's really helpful, Amanda, thank you. But I would still like for the next Sacre for that summary model, because I think that way we've got a common message, a common interpretation of what we share back within our communities. Thank you. Any other points on the agreed syllabus conference? Daniel? Oh, was that your hand? Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. I thought it was a hand.
Sorry, I was just listening carefully. My apologies.
Any other comments? If not, I think, as Amanda was saying, that's a lot of work has gone on with a lot of reading. It now needs distilling into something practical, and the next milestone will be for us to see what that looks like, so we can endorse that for it to go on to the next levels of detail. Thank you. Let's move on to item 6, NASCO self-evaluation toolkit. So we have been progressing that in past meetings. And I'm just trying to recall, unless anybody gets there first, what we got to and whether or not there's any more to be done. There were a series of actions as a result of it. Was there a gap in the elements that we self-assessed? Rosemary?
Yeah, we obviously worked through section 1, and there were some actions which have been picked up, I think, in our action list. Like, for example, I did a report to the county council about what we've been doing, and that, I think that's where the action came from, about inviting pupils and various other things. So I think they've actually been picked up in our action points. And we also did, remind me, Jane, we did section 5, which then left us with section 2, 3, and 4. But section 2 is about quality of learning, I think, and so that's quite a chunky one, whether we actually want to standards and quality of provision. So that, you know, we have got those other ones that are outstanding to work through. I think, speaking, you know, we did find it quite useful just to reflect on where we were and what we're doing. So 4 is on collective, 3 is on, let me remind, 3 is on the agreed syllabus. Yeah, the effectiveness of the locally agreed syllabus, so that's probably not off the right time to take it. 2 is on quality of RE provision, and 4 is on collective worship. So I think it might be a question of when's a good time to actually spend some time going through these.
Yeah. So we do have section 2 attached to the document pack for today from page 15, I think it is, for which there are 5 parts to it. Because of teacher representation, should we at least try and talk through section 2 and have some reflection? And then perhaps at the next meeting, if we can, possibly look at the other sections, or at least one more section. So section 2A refers to RE provision across the LA, how effectively does Sacre gain information about RE provision? Are there any thoughts either way, either from receiving or sending information to Sacre? Is it a strong area?
Can I just, when it talks about schools in this document, it's actually about local authority maintained schools.
Sorry, yes, it is.
So just to be clear that well, we've got Fiona is the local authority maintained school, and we've got Oakham that is at the moment imminently going to become an academy, possibly in the, well, potentially in the autumn. So I think we do have to recognise the limitations of the local authority role in, you know, in necessarily in some of the requests that this is, because this is, you know, it does clearly say this is about maintained schools. So we're actually reflecting on a very, very small proportion of our within Rutland.
Amanda?
I was just going to ask Jill, is Oakham the only VC school?
Yes.
Right, yes, so yes, it is. It's the two schools, so it is the two schools.
But Oakham is about, as I say, it will be an academy by the time we probably have our next Sacre.
Okay.
So whilst maintained schools is where this is focused, it is wider than that. So it does also cover academies where it can be done so. Is there a view as to generally whether provision is good, bad, or indifferent? We've got a scale there, but is there a view one way or another? Even if it's just anecdotal thoughts. Amanda, I can see your hand up. I wasn't sure it's a legacy hand or a new hand guard.
No, it is. I think provision's okay, because from what we've seen from the websites. But as I think Jill will agree, it's really hard to say what provision is like unless you're actually going in there. And unfortunately, Ofsted, from what I've seen, haven't commented on any of the Rutland RE on any of the Rutland schools, which they have done in other areas. Why they haven't on Rutland schools when they have done on other areas, I don't know. So that one is quite hard to work out what the provision is. The secondary schools, it'll be easier when we get exam results stuff. Pupils are put forward to the GCSE, and that will actually give good guidance on those and what provision has been given.
So is it fair to say we can't really establish a view because we don't have the information? And therefore, is that a gap to try and bridge?
How and
I'm sorry, it's really difficult to hear that, Amanda. You're breaking.
Sorry, yeah, my saying my connection's unstable. It's quite hard to do that around academies when academies don't necessarily have to use the agreed syllabus, and we have to have an agreed syllabus. This is also something which will come out later on under the idea about the white paper, the education white paper, which is going through at the moment.
Okay, so what conclusion could we draw on 2A? Rosemary?
And this first question is about, do we gather information about the RE provision in schools, isn't it? So I would say that, yeah, we do actually gather that position. And the other thing I was going to say that I think we did ask for some clarification about our specific roles in relation to academies. And I'm not sure that we've completely got clarity on that.
Megan?
Did we not have a thing where we went through the websites of schools, and therefore we did gain information about the RE, but looking at the question itself about the RE provision in schools and about pupil entitlement. I think a couple of meetings ago, everybody's websites were looked at by possibly Amanda and Lizzie, so that Sacre, we then had feedback about what was going on in all the schools.
Amanda, do you want to come back in?
Yes, we did. Lizzie and I did do that, and that was actually done, Megan, actually before COVID, so it's now 2 years old, and it's probably actually something which we should revisit. We should go back and revisit, especially with actually having almost a full year of schools back in circulation, with actually a full year, and perhaps something we should look at doing in September. Thankfully, it's not an onerous task with
Okay. Should we action that as being we have collected information because it's slightly dated? It's worth now refreshing that in September to give us at least a full year, at least 1 full year's worth of information, and that will then give us an idea of how we might stand on section 2A. Yep, thank you. Section 2B, the standards of achievement and public exam entries. How does Sacre use this information to target support and training for schools? So 1, do we have it? And 2, do we use it? Amanda.
I would say actually we haven't had it for the last 2 years because actually no exam results have been published, and I think it'll be this year we get some. I was having a discussion on this earlier in the day about, for me, it's more important that actually we have its provision, and that provision has been made for all pupils, and actually how many pupils have been actually entered for the GCSE or given the opportunity to do the GCSE and half GCSE. Exam results are fine, but you never have the background of who that cohort is, and is it for us as Sacre to turn around and say, well, you haven't got enough 9s or 8s? That is quite hard. So it's actually how we use that data when the GCSE data and the A-level data comes through. I think actually if they haven't been putting all pupils through for some exam, we could actually perhaps question their provision and point them to some of the the evidence actually from NATRE and the Sacre, who have looked at the link between literacy levels and whole cohorts doing at least a half GCSE.
So is this similar to the previous one where until exams have taken place, we won't have any data? So realistically, when might data be available? Are we talking the autumn, late autumn?
Late autumn, because they have to be, you have to get, you'll get early data, but it won't be confirmed because of any retakes or retakes, and anybody who's said, oh no, I think actually you.
So who's best placed to collect that information late autumn, to look at it and interpret it in preparation for 2B, and probably to feedback in January?
We would have that information, well, certainly in February when the final document, because the final cleanse data is released usually early February for GCSEs and A-levels. That's been published.
So the only reason I raised January, I think we typically have a meeting in January.
I mean, there may be some uncleansed data which would have come out in the autumn term, but in terms of the final absolute data, we would have to wait till the February when it was published. We can do that as a local authority. Lizzie could pick that one up, but I think it's just making sure that we work with the best data that we have, because then that gives us something to really focus.
I think yes, I think the early data will be how many pupils have been, you will know, actually you can probably get that now, actually, how many pupils have been entered for full or half GCSE or equivalents.
So do we then use the which data set do we use? Because I'm just thinking this isn't about absolutes. This is about trends and directions, I think. So if the nearly clean data in January is good, we can always refresh it. It's really just getting that indication of where what might we be, and therefore how it might inform our future development plan.
I think we have to be careful with trends, because the DFE has been very clear that we should not be measuring any trends. It is about what does performance look like at this point in time, because we're in a very different position from the past 2 years. So we're talking about three-year gap. So I think but certainly we could have a look at a point in time.
Well, let's see if we can target a point in time to feedback for January. Thank you.
So good. Can I just say, I was trying to Jill, actually, we have to remember, actually, when we look at the A-level data, that this actually is the cohort who have not done any exams.
Yes, haven't done any exams for 2 years.
Yeah, I guess
it might be actually, when we do this, there might be some little caveats that we need to put in, just pointing out that where the journey that some of these pupils have been on over the last 2 years to get to this point.
Of course, I think this is a self-assessment, and it will help us as a minimum, I guess, baseline where we are, knowing that it's an extraordinary situation that we're in, even coming out of the past 2 years. And of course, we caveat and note that within how we present this information. 2C, quality of learning and teaching. How well does Sacre use knowledge of quality of learning and teaching to target support? That's a difficult, well, they're all difficult ones. That's a very difficult one. Have a way of assessing this or measuring it in any way?
I think it's quite a hard one when, very little comments are made by Ofsted. And actually, it depends on actually who's been in that school and seen that school and had probably spoken to the RE lead. I don't know if Jill agrees or
I was going to say, if this was, if we're talking, and I've worked in large local authorities where, as they call them in here, the school improvement partner, which is a very outdated phrase, is, highly visible in many schools, then, you probably get it in maintained schools, you'd be probably getting some anecdotal feedback. But in terms of making a judgment, I think from a local authority Sacre point of view, that's quite a difficult thing to do based on our ability to gather data that's meaningful.
Do we need to create a set of interviews with schools, with teachers, to get to an informed position? Any thoughts from teachers in this group?
I'm sorry, the last couple of wondering whether the SciAMS reports would give some of this information. I know that if you're controlled, that they do inspect the RE, or am I the wrong way? I was aided, they inspect the RE, sorry, yeah, and controlled they don't. But I know there is, even because I was controlled school, there was some RE, not assessment if you like, they didn't go in and observe lessons, but they did look at books and talk with children. So it's whether the SciAMS reports would give you some feedback.
Fiona, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, Marianne's quite right. As an aided school, we are judged on our RE. As a voluntary control school, you don't get a separate judgment, but they look a little bit. And I think then everything else falls under Ofsted.
Amanda, any further thoughts?
They're right on that. That actually, if it's SciAMS will give an indication. It's obviously it's done very much on the Church of England's reports and what they are looking for within a school, which is very, very specific in what they're looking for. And voluntary controlled schools actually are not inspected under SIAMS. Their collective worship, their curriculum will be looked at, but they're not, they can't go in and actually make any judgments on the teaching of Avari.
So is there a benefit in looking at SIAM's reports as a proxy for 2C?
I think there would be, because although voluntary controlled schools aren't graded specifically, there will be comments referring to the teaching of RE where you could gather some information to establish, broadly speaking, what the quality of RE education may be like across the county. So I think there is some value in looking through those SIAMS reports.
And I'm assuming they're readily available now, so therefore it could be something we could do ready for September. Who's best placed to help with that?
I would say somebody, actually probably somebody from the diocese will have access to all of those, and actually there will be a SIAMS officer in the diocese who can probably actually collate those all for you and send those through.
Would you like me to sort that one? I'll contact the diocese and I'll get an overview and look through them myself if they haven't got an overview ready for us.
I think that would be really helpful. Yes, please.
Okey-doke.
That'd be great. Thank you. 2 to go. 2D, quality of interaction and communication with leadership and management of RE in schools. To what extent does Sacre have and pass on information that supports high quality RE in schools? So
we do send out a newsletter. We send out a newsletter informing all schools 3 times a year anything that's actually, all anything which is not.
So sorry, Amanda, I couldn't hear you. There's 2 hands up. If I go to Rosemary and then Jill.
Thanks. I was just going to say, obviously, from the reports back to the Sacre committee from Lizzie and Jill and Amanda, obviously has been noted what those interactions are in terms of newsletters and contacts to schools and having network meetings. So there seems to be quite a lot of ways of communicating, whether that's, how that's working. I know sometimes the attendance has struggled on that, but there seems to me to be some really good communication with the schools.
Jill?
And I was just going to add, in addition to Amanda's bulletin, there's the education bulletin, which goes out at least once a fortnight, that so we can drip feed of information as it comes through as well, and promote events or resources and things that come through as well.
So would it be fair to say then that with the wide ranging channels of communication and the groups involved, probably either established and advanced in the scale? And then we've got evidence, and not just evidence as a one-off, but over a longer period of time to support that. Rosemary?
Sorry, good. I was just going to say, could you repeat the first bit, because you sort of froze.
Sorry, I was going to say, on reflection, the fact we have a wide-ranging set of channels of communication and audiences and interactions and connections, might we then regard ourselves as being either established or advanced on the scale, and that we've got evidence over a long period of time to support that? Would that be a fair reflection? I think lots of nods and hands going up saying yes. So I would then say, unless anybody has a violent disagreement, we don't need to do any further action on this one as a priority compared to the others, perhaps. Yeah, do we agree with that? Yeah, thank you.
Sorry, Gurliv, I was just going to say that really links into the. Sorry, our other action points about enhancing that really by some particular invites to future meetings, which is more on the, you know, that I sort of agree that we have, you know, good relationships, but I think that probably could be enhanced by those extra attendance at Sacre meetings from specific groups, or as we mentioned, the MOD, to actually get a bit of a deeper insight into some of those areas, but which would add to this. So I think we've already got those on our actions, I would suggest.
Yes. So that's further evidence that we are, in my view, we're probably at least established, and this is probably getting us towards the advanced stage. These are things from recollection, and Amanda, I'm sure you'd agree, we don't see that in Peterborough, we don't see that in Cambridgeshire either. So that's good. Okay, so I would say for now, there's no further action on that particular one. Bear in mind, there are others that we perhaps might want to prioritise. So if we go on to the final one then, 2E, relations with academies and other non-local authority maintained at school. Here's a chance for people to voice themselves as to how good are those relationships. To what extent has the Sacre developed a proactive strategy in relation to academies and non-maintained schools in this area? Are there views as to whether or not there is support from Sacre, particularly, or are there views that the support is not quite there and support is stronger from other parts of those academy chains and non-maintained schools?
I think it's actually quite strong. You know, we invite from Sacre. I think Sacre treats all the schools the same. I don't think, to me, Sacre actually is a school. They're still there for all the children, you know, and all the academies are invited to all the training and network meetings. And I think Jill will probably say that's across the whole of Rutland in all areas of education, that they are classed as actually a school, and ultimately the LA has responsibility for them in the end anyway. So actually they are treated just the same, and I think it's that respect that they are teaching our children in our future.
Did everybody share that view? I mean, I see that certainly because I've worked with Amanda for some while now elsewhere as well. So it seems as if Sacre treats all schools the same, irrespective of their status or type, and consequently the communications, the development opportunities are there equally. And that would sound to me as if we are probably, again, close to it's definitely established and maybe even advanced on the scale. It probably is actually advanced on the scale. If there's no dissenting views, should we establish that as being that's the status that it's advanced and therefore no further action at this stage, at least compared to some of the others? There's always going to be rooms for improvement, but if prioritising actions, that probably wouldn't be the first one we would need to look at. Okay. Any final thoughts on the self-evaluation toolkit, other than perhaps we'll pick up another section at the next meeting? Let's move on then to item 7, the development plan. The development plan is attached. It did actually say in the development plan that we would look to refresh it in light of things like the self-evaluation toolkit. What's the views around the table, whether we should start looking at it now, or should we pause until we get some more feedback on the self-assessment in September? Are there any strong views either way, whether we should start now to refresh it or wait until later in the year? All right, let me turn it the other way around. I'm proposing we wait until September to review again the development plan. Any comments? One hand's up. Rosemary.
Sorry, yeah, thanks, good. It does need refreshing. We sort of extended it a bit because of the pandemic and things, so it definitely needs a refresh. But I think as long as we've refreshed it before the end of this year, so we now do one that looks forward for 23 onwards. Yeah. So I think as long as we've done it and perhaps have it as a specific agenda item, for one of the future meetings this year. So we've got it in place for next year, I would suggest.
Yeah, that would make sense. Yeah, I think there's two key changes here. Andrew, I'll come to you in a moment. I think because of the agreed syllabus and probably having a concept available in September, it will inform the future Sacre development plan. And if we've done the self-assessment and we've got whatever 4 sections done by September, we'll have a lot of useful information as well then. So we'll have 2 useful sources to inform us. Andrew, do you want to come back in? You're on mute. Andrew, you're still on mute. Still on mute, Andrew.
Sorry, yes, sorry, you've got control over my muting, not me. Did you know that? Okay, I just wonder whether
we each can control our own mute buttons here.
No, I know we should do, but I've lost this ability for some reason. Anyway, all I'm saying is that in view of the fact we're halfway through 22, and we're starting to look at a development plan for 23, 24. I'm wondering how much, whether with what's happened in the last couple of years, whether it's worth reviewing it and thus say, well, it's history now, and put our efforts into the future.
Amanda, do you want to come back in?
She said that the development plan usually goes on the academic year, like lots of things in school. So it's like the annual report. It's 20. So it'll be the next one will be 22 to 23.
Right, fine. My point still stands.
Yeah, I was going to say, to come back to Andrew's point then, is it worth still reviewing? Rosemary?
I would suggest the starting point is review the current one and use that then to inform, to produce a new one. But yeah, I don't think it'll take long to actually review it as such, but then it's moving on to actually create the next one.
So let's at least do an assessment of how much have we achieved on the last one at our next meeting. So we end up with a bit of a gap, knowing that there may be other drivers will determine whether or not we're ready to prepare a future one. Mm-hmm. Would that be acceptable, Andrew?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking that with everything that's happened in the last couple of years, it's a very unusual situation, and let's move on.
Sure.
That's my view.
I still think there is merit in just confirming whether we've achieved what we said we were going to achieve, because some of those are not necessarily, for example, COVID specific, they're not necessarily influenced by COVID. But rather than prejudge that, if we just spend a little bit of time at the next meeting just to confirm that. So that'll be an agenda item then.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so that's the plan for the development plan. If we move on to item 8, training attended by Sacre members to receive a verbal update. So is there anybody at the meeting who went to Sacre?
Oh, I missed it.
I'm sorry, I had it in my pack here. Here we go. There is a summary document in the pack. Amanda.
Good. If I attended the Sacre conference.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about what took place and how it's useful for the group?
I think actually what the useful was actually they've been doing lots of like little workshops afterwards, which have been quite useful. And if you haven't been able to attend, they've sent the kind of PowerPoints, which have been very useful afterwards. At the HMI, they had the HMI for RE there, and his talk was really good, and he actually kind of confirmed and actually in a way better, less academic words, I suppose the best way to do it, in a less academic way, what he actually meant by some of those, which has been quite useful. And what Ofsted actually, and I think are actually RE in our schools. There were some quite good debates. We had workshops, like breakout rooms, and debating around some of the aspects. So yeah, it's not the same as being there in person. In the afternoon around some things about the annual report and some of the and looking at what the annual reports were saying. I think those were quite useful for Sacre, but it was a good meeting and it was well organised.
Thank you. I think for me, although I didn't attend, I did read through the notes, and that's really helpful to have those notes. There were two things that stood out. I think it might be worth sharing. One is there is a document, a draft handbook on religion and worldviews, which I know we've discussed before, but for those who might want to see that in full, there's a link to that in the third paragraph. But I think in the first paragraph, there's also a reference to a report called Still Standing. And in there is a set of recommendations for the locally agreed syllabus in Appendix 4. It might be worth us looking at that to see if there's anything we can learn from it as we are developing our new locally agreed syllabus. So perhaps if that's an action I could give to the agreed syllabus conference, to take the Still Standing report and look at the Appendix 4 in particular.
I think those have already been shared within the agreed syllabus conference as well, but they are good documents.
Okay, thank you. Andrew?
Just how do you get these particular links you mentioned about the worldviews draft document? Have I missed that?
So in the attachment called training attended, there's a couple of phrases underscored and highlighted. If you click that, it should go straight into where
okay. Thank you.
Any other comments on the training attended?
I've attended some other training at to do actually some really interesting training on decolonizing the RE curriculum in primary schools, which has been really useful in some of the training and some of the network meetings. And it's about looking at resources. What do those resources look like to those faiths? Are they a true interpretation of what is going on, or is it a Western kind of look at that faith? And it's also Sheila, I don't know if you've been on the Jewish Museum in London. They've been doing a lot of work on actually schools are using and how schools should actually represent the majority of Jewish people. And there's been some really good training that I've been on. And it's all been free, actually. It's been really, really good around that as well. And I've also done some on some critical thinking on RE as well.
Yeah. And I at this point say I'm going to have to disappear in 5 minutes because I'm running training for Jewish Sacre reps who are new. So I'll say now that, you know, I'm sorry, I have to go in 5 minutes. Okay.
Thank you, Sheila. Fiona?
You're aware as well that the Board of Deputies, we also have training. We have an exhibition that tours around. But we can talk about that another time. Yeah.
I've not been on the training yet, but there's some training being run by the diocese next Wednesday evening, and I've signed up for that.
Great.
I've also signed up to that as well.
We're going to be the most educated group.
Fiona, can I ask what the training is next Wednesday?
I think I understand that it's new people new to Sacre.
I think it's called So You've Joined Your Local Sacre.
Yes. Done that. Yeah.
Brilliant.
That will be good because that will be an induction.
Mm-hmm.
Great. That's really helpful. Thank you. Particularly some of the training, for example, from Sacre, it was always helpful to understand how training can help Sacre to help schools and pupils. Knowing about the training is fantastic, but it's that onwards bit would be better still as well. That'd be really helpful if we can give that some thought going forward. So particularly those who are going to go on training soon, when reflecting, how could Sacre use the benefit of your knowledge? Up on network meetings. Amanda.
Yeah, we haven't had actually a brilliant time up. What I have been trying to actually incorporate the network meetings, because we've had to do them via Zoom or Teams, into with my other schools in Cambridge. And Interesting to see, Cara and Marianne, what you would like to do going forward now we are actually meeting face to face. Would you like face-to-face meetings back?
Here's your answer.
My personal views, I love face to face, and it's nice to go in other schools to share good practice. Sometimes though the practicability is online because you haven't got to traipse across Rutland. So maybe we could sort of do every other one was virtual and other one was face to face. Then maybe more people would actually be able to attend.
I mean, I'm quite happy to host one sometime. I think it would be really nice for, to let people come in and have a look.
Yeah.
Because, it's really interesting hearing how much, RE work's going on, and we seem to be right back into it straight away. And we haven't had that delay so much in our school. We have our inspection soon as well. So we've got quite a lot of useful things. I mean, just hearing about all the multi-faith things, we use the St Philip's Centre, which is in Leicester quite a lot, and that's a really good resource to use. So sharing resources and things would be really useful too. So from my point of view, yes, it would be a good start to come along and do a face-to-face sometime. That would be great. It's nice to be part of the community, really, because we're in a trust which was in Lincoln, and now we're moving to Leicestershire. It would be nice to be back in our home territory again, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I'd be pleased to do that.
I ask what time suits you, because it is we used to meet up at 1 o'clock at schools, and that's always obviously then an issue, and especially with I'm just thinking with getting cover and things like that. What time suits you to do these? Is it actually still at lunchtime or after school?
I think probably after school would be better for me, but obviously because I'm teaching, but I don't know what other people think.
Daniel,
depends how many other twilight sessions you have that week. We've had a lot of twilight sessions this year, but the flip side is, as Cara says, you can't get cover. So again, it's one of those where I don't think there's a right answer for everyone.
To say, Jill, would I be able to actually just send perhaps a little something out saying next year we really want to actually push the network meetings. What days is a consensus of what day suits and what time suits most schools?
Yeah, we can facilitate that. That's not a problem, Miranda.
Okay, that's helpful. And if you take account of the fact that it would be probably a mixed model of some face-to-face and some virtual.
That suits me as well. That suits me as well, because actually, especially with dark nights and everything, I'm not brilliant. It's actually nicer to actually do the dark nights and the cold nights from home, and actually and spend the face-to-face ones when it's a bit lighter, and it's nicer to drive home. Old age is getting to my eyes.
Okay, that's helpful. So I guess the summary on that is they are resuming, and we have a more flexible approach going forwards as to how they'll take place to maximize both attendance and therefore the benefits to the group who attend. Thank you. Let's move on to item 10, monitoring of RE in schools and Ofsted inspection reports. And that's for Jill to take the lead on.
I think as we've established the monitoring of RE in schools from the bit that we just did on the self-review, I think we sort of talked that through. Lizzie has prepared some extracts from in fact, the inspections that we've had this year, she's collated right the way through. We've not, and I'm not complaining, not had that many Ofsted inspections. So we've included nursery inspections as well. And as we've said, inspectors don't necessarily report on the quality of RE within our schools, and so it is that wider looking at the things that relate to it. So I think it's as the report says, there's I mean, it is interesting that we are looking, you know, about how right from the very young children in nurseries that we continue to focus on this, that it's not something that is just about what's taught in schools. And I think the more we can work with our inspection teams and with our providers to support that, I think it's really good opportunities here. But nothing specific about quality of teaching or learning of RE within the inspections. And we are aware of a SIAMS inspection this last week. So, you know, there will be some perhaps more information coming through from those as they're starting to come back through the system as well.
Amanda, do you want to comment?
I mean, I'm just going to say actually from I luckily actually get to see also Peterborough and Cambridgeshire, where there have been some deep dives in RE, and I've had actually the privilege actually going to speak to those teachers about it and using that to inform some training and things that we have done on Ofsted and RE. And again, as Jill said, it's also a lot of it is unpicking what they're saying vaguely around it, and a lot of this is actually that the children have you know, they know about people from other faiths, they know other people from traditions and those things as well. So it's actually just kind of unpicking some of it as well.
That's helpful, thank you. And I was just going to add, as I was reading through the update, the RE update report, one thought came to my mind, which was views from different lenses. So it does look as if it's not just from a normal approach, it is almost a worldviews type approach already embedded here. That's very encouraging. So we'll keep that on future meetings as and when updates appear. Thank you. We're on to then item 11, a significant update, the education white paper. Amanda.
Yeah, and Jill, please, you know, chip in if you need to, because the education white paper is going through at the moment, and this actually has quite some ramifications if it all goes through and it stays to 2030 for Sacre, with the academisation of all schools, and it doesn't seem the government hasn't quite worked out what it's going to do with Sacre and the idea of an agreed syllabus, and whether they are going to adopt the idea of a national entitlement or go down the route of trying to add a national curriculum, RE to the national curriculum. And that obviously will also have that will be quite hard to get in my sense of actually pushing it through the Lords, because of the bishops and the view and some of the views there on education. So we really need to be thinking about what the future and keeping an eye on this white paper. And also it also depends on actually who then comes into government and if they actually then make any changes as well, and then what happens. This is the problem when saying by 2030, but it will have a significant effect on Sacre if it carries on. It's just something that we need to keep reviewing. I know the Sacre are reviewing it and keeping an eye on what is going on and talking to the DfE about actually what will happen to RE, that they can't just ignore RE. Otherwise, all the good gains over the last few years that actually has come out of Ofsted looking at it and schools really beginning to take on this broader curriculum will be lost.
Just a question, Amanda, for me, if I may. Do we need to offer any views by the Sacre, or we're not at that stage?
I think you could actually, I think anytime you can actually offer your views as a Sacre about it and about actually what the effect this has on a group of people who have for a long time been given up their time and actually look at and thinking about the good of the children and actually how important RE is. So I don't think I think the Sacre, that could be sent to the Sacre, because the Sacre do actually have ears at the DfE and at Westminster as well.
Andrew?
You could also write your MP, which may even be more effective depending on the MP. I don't know.
Is there an advantage if perhaps, Amanda, you could help us as a Sacre to put a message together, which then we could use, and then individually, if you choose to, you may want to take bits of that message and write to your MP.
Good
At least
idea.
we've got it factual, because it is a very detailed, I think it was a very long document, and you created a very neat, concise summary for us.
I probably could. Jill, is that okay?
Jill, is that okay to do that? That if we pull together a summary which we can then use as Sacre, because I think we should take the advantage of, we've got a couple of members, one current and one future, who are part of the exec committee, to at least get our views heard as to good, bad or indifferent on the legislative changes that might be forthcoming.
Yeah, I think that as individual constituents, we can say, and also I happen to sit on the Sacre, you know, but these are the views that I would like you to take into account. It may have some impact.
So that would be helpful if we could have something perhaps over the summer, and then in September we've closed the matter off. You know, it's down to the Sacre then to issue something, and individuals to do with that information as they please, but on a personal note rather than as a group.
We also have we have regular meetings with DFE, so it's certainly something that if we wanted to channel through the DFE to that sort of level, more along the regional schools commissioners, and that sort of, but that impact of the actions or potential impact of the actions. So there's another funnel that way as well through the system.
That'd be good, yes, because that's an it's so from a commissioning point of view, you're picking up views of stakeholders. We can use all those channels then. That's helpful. So that's the action, if that's agreeable, that we'll create that text and then make use of it in September. Thank you. Let's move on to the final couple of items. So is there any urgent business, which is item 12? No. Is there any other point anybody wishes to raise before we talk about the date of the next meeting? Andrew?
Yeah, I'd just like to draw people's attention that, of course, what we've been talking about is regarding England, not the UK. And in Wales, they're just about to pass some quite sweeping legislation on the teaching of religion in schools and other things. And they've actually broadened the scope to deal with other things such as objectivity, age and development, etc., etc. If any of you got the chance just to have a quick look at what's happened, it's quite interesting to see where the Welsh have got to.
Thank you. Amanda, do you want to come back in?
I do have a, I will look for it. I do have a brief summary that somebody did on the Wales, on what is happening in Wales. I will ask them if I can send it over because it is quite a very long document and it might just actually save you a bit of time. But I will ask if they're happy for me to share it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, there's no more items on that. Let's move on to item 13, the final item, which is just confirming the date of the next meeting, being the 6th of September at the council chambers in Oakham, starting at 4:30. Just for clarity, do we plan to, for those who can't make it, still have a Zoom link so we can again get the most people attending the meeting?
At the moment, the meeting will be available to view via Zoom. If you want it to be an interactive meeting where members are in the meeting in person and also joining virtually, I would need to consult with our IT department to see if we could get that up and running for you.
That would be
my understanding that is that we're not able to do that at the moment, but Jane, if you can,
yeah, I will double check with Andy Nix because I know they're working on a new system, but I don't know if it's going to be in time for the September meeting, but I will check and let you know.
Thank you. I mean, that would be the preference, just so that we can get as many people attending and avoid the idea of we don't get quorate purely because physically we've not made the alternative mechanism available. But if it's not possible, we understand that practically. Andrew.
Just one request to governance, if we go back to having meetings in the counselling, please can you do something about the sound? My hearing is not brilliant, and I had difficulty hearing some people in the council chamber. When I first went, we actually had individual speakers, but then they suddenly disappeared. And I must admit, when we've got quietly spoken people, I didn't hear everything they said. So just an appeal.
Yeah, we are aware of the issue, and our IT manager is frantically trying to get a new system installed, because nobody thought 2 years ago that we would have to have virtual meetings. But yes,
I shall be there in person, I hope, but I need to hear.
I'll ask them to put the microphones on.
Okay, if there's no other matters, thank you everybody for attending, and thank you again to Rosemary in particular. Yeah. And let's call the meeting to a close and see you all again in September. Have a good summer.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Very good.